Okay, I had some technical difficulties, but I think we are all set here. Um, I will just hang out for a second and wait for people to come. Let's see. You guys are going to have to bear with me because this is uncharted territory for me. Okay. All right. I think we're good. So, um, I will get started, and if people come in the next couple minutes, that's fine. But it's pretty easy to catch up if you can't be here from the beginning. So today we're going to be making a little booklet, and I have a finished one here. So this is what it's going to look like when it's done. You can see that we just have it's pretty easy. It's literally just a matter of folding some pages and then sewing them together. So if you know how to sew, you'll be good. And it's not huge. It's just like a little pamphlet book, and it's perfect for like a little gift. Mother's Day is in a couple days, so come make one for your mom. Um, and yeah, so I did a class for this like in person at the library a couple weeks ago before everything got shut down. And it was pretty well received, and people said it was fun. So hopefully you guys will have fun today, even though this is a little unconventional. um, all right, so we're gonna start with all you really need for this is some paper that's thick enough that it won't rip when you sew it, and a nice pretty sheet of, you have like scrapbook paper or like even construction paper is going to work, something colorful and fun, so you have that as going to be the cover of your book. um, I bought a kit on Amazon that's specifically for bookmaking. So it came with a lot of nifty stuff, including like this special type of thread that is really, it's like wax twine. So it's really thick and it's not going to rip when you pull it through all these pages. And then it came with these really hefty needles, which are great because when I was first learning how to do this, I just used normal needles and I broke a lot of them. So the thicker needles are definitely good. What also works is tapestry needles. I don't know if that's exactly what these are, but that's what I've used before. And I only broke about one of those. So, it's not perfect, but they work, or whatever you've got at home, it also works. When this is over, I can actually drop a link to the bookbinding kit that I bought because it was only like, I want to say like $10 or $12, and it gave me a lot of cool stuff if you want to get into bookbinding. Okay, so now that I'm done rambling, we can get into it. So I tore out about 4 or 5 pages from a sketchbook that I had lying around, and they are like normal sheet of paper size. And I just take the sheet and fold it in half, and this is going to be the inside, like the filling of your book. So get your paper folded and just get a really good crease along the edge there. Make sure they're all nestled together really snug, and try to get the end of it like as even as possible. Like mine's not perfect, but that's okay. It's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be cute, right? Okay, so once you've got your, oh, I'm gonna have to cut this, aren't I? Once you've got your pages folded, we're gonna set that aside, and then we're gonna take the cover and make sure that you know what, maybe I should tilt this down so that you can see what I'm doing. So we're just gonna fold the cover page over the filler paper, and I'm gonna have to cut this a little bit, obviously, because it's a little too tall, but that's okay. So again, we want to make sure that it folds really snugly around the pages so that it doesn't, so it's not like too long on the edge. So I am going to do this, and then cut that just where mark. So what else you can do is, if you don't want to use scrapbook paper, I know that's probably, you know, you may or may not have that at home, but if you want to do something a little bit more advanced, I guess, I also bought a while ago these like sheets of thin leather that you can use to as the covers if you want, and in that situation you definitely want a really hefty needle to poke through that leather. It is not fun, it is not easy. But it's cool if you want like a denser book, and there's patterns you can get online for different ways to sew the pages together, but today we're going to stick with something easy. All right, so I got my cover cut down to size, and you're just going to wrap it around the pages like that, and I'll tilt this back up again. So we have this beginnings of a book here. All right, so now it's time for some sewing. And actually, before we actually start sewing, so you're going to open up your book and you're going to make 5 little dots like I did down the spine there, and that's going to be kind of like your guideline for where the stitches are going to go in. Okay, so yeah, so you want 5 little dots, space them out evenly. I recommend starting in the middle and then moving outward like that so that you know they are spaced somewhat evenly. Mine aren't perfect, but again, we're not here for perfection. So, okay. Once you've got your little dots there, I'm gonna thread my needle so it's ready. You don't need a ton of thread, but a good length of it. You know, it's better to have extra than to run out in the middle of sewing. It's not, the stitch we're gonna do is not like terribly complicated, so you shouldn't need as much thread as I'm using, but that's okay. Like I said, better to be safe than sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna throw my needle. Okay, so I have a tool actually that came with my bookbinding kit that is great for poking holes through things like paper and leather and other various materials involved in bookbinding. It looks like this. It's just like this little thing with a pointy end. It's very sharp. It's called an awl. It's spelled AWL. They're very handy. I'm very glad I had this. I wish I had had it when I made like 10 of these books for Christmas presents for people, because that was hard on my hands, shoving those needles through all those pages. But with something like this, with the paper I'm using, and like, you know, the cover is just, it's again, it's a little bit thicker paper, so it's not really thick. You can just like poke the needle through it if you try hard enough. It's not, I don't know, it's hard on your fingers, but it works and it's fine. But I'm gonna be using the awl today because I have it and I don't want to suffer. So, okay. Okay, so I've got my needle all ready to go. And then you're going to take your pointy object, whether that be a needle or one of these if you happen to have one at home. And I am going to just poke through each little dot we made on the inside of the book so that we have our holes there ready for us to sew. So I'll put this down again so you can see what I'm doing. And what I should have done is gotten some paper clips or something to hold this together while I'm doing this, but that's okay. Okay. Hopefully I didn't stab the table too much. All right, now, oops. Okay, now it's time to actually start sewing. So, we are going to start with the very last hole on the bottom here, and you're going to start from the inside. So, oh, and also make sure, this is probably obvious, make sure that there's a good knot at the end of your thread so it doesn't come loose. Okay, so we're going to start with the one at the very bottom, And if I could get a good grip on this, that'd be cool. Starting from the inside, just pull it all the way through. And while we're doing this, you're going to want to make sure your stitches are really snug and tight, because otherwise your book isn't going to stay together as well if they're a little bit loose. You know, the stitches are going to make up like the spine of your book, so you definitely want to make sure they're very, very tight. But obviously, if you're using thinner paper, don't pull too hard because it'll just rip right through, which is why I don't recommend using like lined filler paper, or like notebook paper, or regular printer paper even might be a little bit too thin. If you use a lot of pages, it might work, but just be careful with your stitches. But anything that's thicker than that, like at one point I used like really thick cardstock for the filling paper, and again, the sketchbook drawing paper works really well. Okay, so we went through the first hole to the outside, then we're going to go from the outside through the second hole to the inside, and you're really just going to sew it in a normal like in and out pattern up the spine of the book. And then once you get up to the top, we'll do something different and fancy with it. But for now, if I could find the hole I stabbed in this, that would be cool. For now, we're just going to do an easy sewing pattern. I'm having difficulty stabbing this through the paper. Okay, there we go. So I guess while we're just sitting here sewing, I can talk about how I got into this type of craft. I actually saw a book come through the library that was about, it wasn't just about bookbinding. I think it was just like general like paper crafts, but it had a picture of like a hand bound book on the cover. And I was like, oh, that's a thing. I should like learn how to do that. So I found some other books through OWL about specifically bookbinding. And the one that I found the most helpful was called The Little Book of Bookmaking. I'm not sure who the author is off the top of my head, but it had like literally hundreds of different types of book crafts. And the stitch that we're doing today is a modified version of one that I found in that book. I'm not following it exactly because I don't remember it exactly, but this was the gist of it. And it's simple and easy, and like pretty much anybody could do it. So I thought it would be perfect for this class, and we had planned and scheduled to do a more advanced bookmaking class. I think it was supposed to be at the beginning of April, but then the pandemic got in the way. So whenever we reopen our doors, hopefully we will reschedule that. And if anybody is as crafty and ambitious as I am, you can come and make a more complicated book with us that might take, like, this one takes like maybe all of 15 minutes from start to finish. When I was teaching myself how to do it as I was going, it definitely took me a little bit longer. But once you're in the groove, it is very simple. But the complicated ones will take an hour at the most, I think. But it's fun, and even though it's kind of frustrating and time consuming, it's fun, and it's like really satisfying to make something that didn't exist before. And you know, you're done, you're finished, and you have something that you made with your own two hands that you magically conjured out of the air. So I think that's pretty neat. Okay, so I am at the top now of my book. So what we're gonna do is basically backtrack and go along the outside of the spine now. So we're at the top, and you're gonna take your needle and poke it through the second hole down, like going from inside to outside. And so it's basically like we're sewing the outside of the spine in the same way that we just sewed the inside. So you're gonna pull it through. I know I'm using paper and thread that blends in with each other, so it's kind of hard to see. But at the end, what you want it to look like is you're going to want like the whole spine to be threaded like that. It's going to be like a continuous line of thread down the spine, basically. Like there's not going to be any skipped or open spaces. We just want to make sure that it's really snug in there. So we went in through the second hole and came in from the outside. So then you're going to go back out through the middle. Okay, you probably see where I'm going with this. And then back in through hole number 4. Okay, so now we're basically to the end. What I'm gonna do, I think, no, it can stay like that. So what I'm gonna do is, since we still have one little part that's not sewed yet, I'm gonna put this through again to the outside in the last hole, and then okay, and then just for design purposes, I'm going to take this and put it all the way up to the top and put it through the top hole again. Pull it through to the inside, pull it tight, and then we're done. So I'm going to tie it, and I'm just going to, all right, let me do this again. Sorry, I keep putting the camera up and down. So I'm just going to like loop it through one of the other stitches and then tie a knot. Okay, nice and tight. And then I'm just going to cut the extra away. Maybe. Come on, okay. Okay, and look at that. You sewed a whole book together. Yeah, so okay, I could have done this a little bit tighter, but that's all right. It'll stay together. It's fine. Yeah, so this is what you should end up with, is that's what it's going to look like on the inside. And then the back is going to look the same. I should have used a darker thread, but that's okay. And if you'll notice, I did not put the thread around like the outside of the spine. Like it doesn't loop around the edge of the book. Just because I think it would rip it, honestly, if you did it that way. But yeah, so again, it's what it's going to look like on the inside and on the outside. And you've got a really cute little notebook all set. So that's really about it. Like I said, it's very simple, and you can just mass produce them, give them to your friends, give them to your family. As long as you've got the paper and the thread and needle, it's really just, that's all there is to it. Just sewing some pages together. And yeah, it's just a fun little craft, and like you can do it pretty much with anybody. So I'm really glad for you guys that came and watched. And I can post like some written instructions and supply list, and also the link to that kit that I bought, because that really has everything you need except for the paper itself. And you can get paper pretty much anywhere. So what I like to do is stores like Michael's and Joann Fabrics have like these rows, these aisles of fun decorative scrapbook paper like this, and some of them are like thicker and shiny and like glittery, and those are really fun to use as your book covers, so that you have like a variety of cute little patterns and stuff. So yeah, it's easy, have fun with it. So yeah, okay, wait, I'm seeing stuff come up in the comments. Book titles for the books you like. Yes, yeah, so again, the book that I found the most helpful was called The Little Book of Bookmaking, and I will also put that in the post that I'm going to write when this is over. We definitely have it in the OWL system. I don't know if it's available as an ebook, but I can look, and like worst comes to worst, you could like buy it for yourself online somewhere. Too bad I can't get you like the library's copy, but say la vie. um, so yeah, I will add the book titles and such to my post as well. And I'm really glad you guys could join me and go home and make some books for your mom or your friends or anybody. So thanks for coming. And oh wait, yeah, Dan's Crafts and Things, they're good too. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming. I hope you had fun. I hope that this was educational. And we hope to see you back in the library as soon as possible. Stay safe and healthy out there, everyone. It's been fun. Bye.